everyone, welcome back to the Clap podcast. I am so excited about this week's episode as we have our first returning guest. I know, I cannot believe it either. It's such an honor that guests want to come back, have a chat about their new projects, and of course, Philip was my first interview for the show, and he is phenomenal. I mean, we all remember that first interview. He gave us such an insight into his work. And of course, he is back with Black Bag, which is a new film that he has in theaters now. And it's come from his longtime collaborator, Steven Soderbergh. So they've collaborated together on films like Traffic, Aaron Brockovich, and of course the Ocean's trilogy. And now they are back with this new spy thriller starring Cate Blanchett, Michael Fassbender, Regé-Jean Page. I mean, the list goes on. A phenomenal cast for a phenomenal film. I'm really excited about this interview. As you'll see, we have some great discussions about the film and, of course, his collaboration with Steven Soderbergh. There are some minor spoilers, as you sort of have to with a film like this, where it's spy espionage. You kind of have to go into some of the plot points. So a bit of a warning for that, but I really hope you enjoy this conversation. Thank you so much to Philip for coming on the show, and I hope you enjoy this one. Again, Philip Messina coming on for Black Bag. Enjoy the interview.
Got offered a couple things that were sort of mediocre, but I was like, oh, should I just take it for the money? And I've never really done that before. And at the last minute, not at the last minute, but I bailed on it. And now I think there's like a really good project that I'm going to do. So I'm hoping that it all was worthwhile in the end. You know, it's such a crapshoot.
Yeah.
Total crapshoot. So
How do you kind of decide what, you know what I mean? Like, it's just that split,
director first, script second.
yeah,
Or if I don't know the director, then script. And you know, a lot of it is I look for the visual opportunities, but I just want to work on a good movie. I'd
yeah,
rather do something that, you know, like an Aaron Brockovich, where the look is kind of in the background, but it's a really good movie. I've always wanted to associate myself with good projects because there's, you know, if you do some great work on a shitty movie, it's like kind of doesn't really amount to much in the
yeah.
end. A lot of times, you know.
Mm.
Um, Very few people will go see a movie that's badly reviewed just because they say, "Oh, but it looks great." You know, I don't know.
Yeah.
So, uh, yeah, and I try to find material that. It's funny. This director, I was on the phone 2 hours with this director yesterday,
Mm.
talking about this project, and I said it scares me just enough. You know, 'cause there's parts of
Right.
it I have no idea how we're gonna do, and it's like that's great. You know, I just turned 60, man. I still want to be scared every day by what I do in a good way. Not scared like frightened, but like challenged.
Right.
So
Yeah, definitely. Well, you kind of mentioned director first. So you and Soderbergh are back. Come on.
yeah,
I
yeah, yeah,
was
yeah.
so excited when I heard that, man. Like,
Has it
awesome.
opened there yet? Is it in theaters down there yet?
It
Okay,
is,
cool.
yeah. I've gone with a few friends and stuff. Yeah, I've seen it a couple of times. It's kind of, I think it's been out for a few weeks now. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So
So probably the
it's,
same as up here.
yeah,
Uh,
exactly. So, I went to a pretty busy showing of it, and it was so fun to see people's reactions throughout.
Yeah,
Like,
it's a fun movie. It's like I don't know what, you know, here they targeted the trailer to make it look a little bit more like an action movie, but I think enough reviews had come out that kind of dispelled that and like managed the expectations that it's like, no, it's kind of like a chamber piece, you know, and it's like
yeah,
it's all about the acting and dialogue, and like glamorous movie stars in glamorous settings. So that's kind of that was our mandate. So you know, it was fun. It was a lot of fun. I'm glad that it's good to have like another studio hit with Steven because it's you know it's been a little bit for us to even just like working together and pandemic and all that stuff and so it was good to kind of get back with him and really like I feel like we hit a groove on this one that was very satisfying.
oh, definitely. I mean, the production design is like a character in itself. I mean, like the 12-minute dinner table sequence. I mean,
Sure.
come on. I was
Yeah.
doing a lot of prep before this, and I was looking at like the fact that you had to cut a hole in the dinner table so Steven could stand in the
Sure.
middle and
Sure.
like get the angles he needed. I mean, That must
Trust
have been
me.
one of those examples of a challenge when you read the
Yeah, no,
script.
we were initially gonna buy a beautiful old kind of I think it was like a French kind of vintage table. And then when Steven said it wasn't just cutting a hole in the center, he wanted like the two ends to come apart so we can kind of get in the middle. And
Mm,
it was sort of like did a few things and we're like, oh, this is like a magician's box we got to
right.
build. And to happen quickly too, you know.
Mm,
Because he likes to kind of keep the momentum of the day going and not, you know, not let technical things kind of get in the way of like the energy that he wants to sustain on set,
yeah.
which I always, totally respect that. That's really the most important thing. So, yeah, it was fun. It was fun. And I was telling somebody the other day, it's like I really, when I read that dinner table scene, that was one of the things like, a thing that didn't scare me, but I knew it was going to be tricky because generally dinner table scenes are where like movies go to die momentum wise. It's sort
Right.
of like, or they everybody does them the same way because look, you have the actors are not moving. Generally it's like there's no like blocking, there's nothing to motivate the camera other than like around the table. Thank God there was six people, so there was like a lot of opportunities. But I designed that house and the set and the dining room like from the center out. So I knew that each direction had visual interest, whether it was like a long depth into the kitchen, the sort of the tree in the glass box. There was a mural that I had painted behind Michael's head, and the other view was into the living room. Yeah, I didn't want to make it open like they were sitting in a big loft that was just completely, they were an island. I needed kind of to feel like a room there, but no, I knew that was going to be challenging, and I kind of felt like that paid off just addressing the elephant in the room.
Mm,
I think there's
yeah.
maybe one scene in the living room, but it plays as background for a lot of those scenes, and there's a certain amount. There's a lot in the kitchen, obviously. So
Mm.
yeah, that was the one thing I was like, I got to tackle this first before I kind of do anything else. Just precisely because of those two scenes, especially the first one.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you mentioned the murals because they did stand out to me where you had like the river, obviously symbolic of Michael Fassbender's character with the fishing element,
Yep.
and the other one was in the bedroom with like the trees behind the bed.
Yeah.
And I was
Yeah.
like, that must have just it's one of those things when you notice it. It was my second watch, and I went, oh, I see what you've done because that the bedroom space, their
It's like their
it's like their
nest.
safe their nest. There you
Yeah.
go,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. No, when I first read it, even before I talked to Michael, about this, in the script, it was sort of like, it was written as a way that's like, look, you have like the corporate kind of the spy, the GCHQ or GC. I even forget the letters. I think it was GCHQ. Where they go to work, which had to be antiseptic and kind of devoid of a lot of adornment and detail because they don't leave stuff lying around. We went and visited the real place, and it's kind of like it looks like a normal office, but it's almost like reductive. There's things that are missing from it that you'd normally see in a real office, and that's hard to convey. Sometimes you don't want people to think the set just doesn't feel finished. You know what I mean? That's
Right.
why it's sort of like a lot of glass and angles, and there's sort of like more graphic architecture. So there was sort of like this kind of graphic geometric quality to the offices, and I wanted the where he goes, which he has a great job. He can go fishing in the middle of the day, but
Yeah.
where he goes, I want obviously the polar opposite of that, this kind of very idyllic lake in nature, sort of like where he's still working because I think he's a character where his brain is always going. But it's just like his kind of Zen meditation retreat, especially with that first scene with just like the sound of the reel. And someone asked me if like the swans and ducks were CG. It's like no, the lake was full of them, and we had to actually chase some off because they were getting like there were too much of them. They were making honking noises, and um, so I knew that in the house I wanted to once I started laying out that dining room set, I talked to Steven about like can Michael and Steven had a very particular order he wanted the characters to be in for his camera movements. especially for that first scene going around the table talking about their resolutions and all that stuff. But I said, whatever we do, can we just have Michael somewhere on that side in any of those three positions? Because I thought that was, I wanted him to be framed by nature. And then something I wish I had seen, I had seen more. I saw it, but I knew it was there and I was looking for it. I had a scene in the lower left corner, kind of where Reggae, I
Oh,
forget
Reggie
his,
John Page.
yeah, where his character is. There's a hunting scene. There are these dogs that are kind of tearing a wolf apart. And
Right.
I should have made it more. It was too subtle. I should have made it, and it was too low. He just never, Steven never kind of captured it. There's one shot I think I see it, and I was sort of inspired by. I don't know if you guys have seen White Lotus down there, the Mike
Yes.
White
Yes.
series. Those title sequences where like they're beautiful, the murals that all of a sudden you're watching it and you're like, what the hell is happening in that? There's like the sea animals eating people, and it was a little bit of a nod, not a nod, but I was kind of inspired by that. And I just wanted to have this little like everything is peaceful, but if you look closely, there's a little turmoil, there's a little blood being shed. So
Wow.
I'm actually taking some friends on Friday. I have like two friends that have been wanting to see it, and they're like, "Will you come with us?" I've seen it three times. Like, yeah, let me go see it in the theater one more time before it goes away. I
Mm.
actually want to like see where I know I've seen it on film, but it's super super subtle.
Mm.
So
Right.
anyway,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
the kind of the fun little games we play.
That's so
I'm
cool.
always afraid. Like I am one of those people that one of those designers. I don't ever want the design to take away from the scene. So I tend to be a little bit maybe more restrained sometimes. And I think of everything as a piece. And I had an old production designer. I may have said this in the last interview. It's one of my favorite quotes. A designer I worked for a couple of times, a British designer. Um, and he said the set should always feel empty until the actors enter. And I always
Yeah.
remember that because it's like because we spend as the designer and decorator, we spend so much time in this empty set from the plywood to then the color and then the adornment, the sconces and the light fixtures and the furniture comes in and we sort of like want to kind of make it this perfect, however you define perfect, this perfect frame. But it's always important to remember that there's going to be human beings occupying this.
Yeah.
And I know it's like sounds obvious, but it's kind of like as you go down your kind of rabbit hole of designing the set and decorating it, there's the most important part is yet to come. And there are these not just human beings, but they're like moving. There are these entities that are kind of moving in your static set that's then gonna kind of like motivate the camera to be moving. So there's like I try to say anticipate, but sort of keep that in the forefront of my mind all the time. Especially if it's like like the dining room scene. I think you kind of have to really think like a director a lot of times or a cinematographer as you're designing the set. Like, what am I? I'm like the first piece in the supply chain. So it goes me, the cinematographer, director, actor, costume designer is involved there, which we always have very kind of intimate conversations about. Um, so I just gotta say this film, and it's a fairly simple film. I just love the way it all kind of came together because it wasn't an accident, but it happens less completely than you know, imagine on other films with
Yeah.
really talented people involved. Just sort of like just a kismet that happens, and
Mhm.
this sort of we had it on this one.
Yeah, definitely. Was it
Yeah.
quite freeing? Because it's such like a sexy film. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yes.
was it fun to just kind of like these, the lead characters are living in this beautiful house in London. Like, was it
Right.
really fun to just like you kept it in this place where it feels lived in with these characters, but also
Right.
like really extravagant at the same time and stunning. Like, how
Yeah.
was
No, I
that to
was.
just
I was.
explore?
One thing I was. At the beginning, Steven said, I want to make like an elegant, sexy movie. Sort of like, it's kind of the same mandate that I heard when we were making the Oceans movies. And those are obviously very different, but like just a good looking, slick is probably not the best word, but just a good looking, like well made Hollywood film. We're not going for like Aaron Brockovich and Traffic were all about kind of beating it up, taking like at that point Julia Roberts was the biggest movie star on the planet. Let's put her in something that looks like an indie film. That was based on real events, and so that warranted that. That was a creative decision that Steven made, which was spot on. This was like it doesn't really mean anything. It's just like a fun, entertaining movie,
Mm,
And
yeah.
so when I started designing the house, and Ellen Mirajnik, who's the costume designer, and I talked a lot. She's like, "What are the wall colors? What are the wall colors?" And I was like, "Fuck!" That was like not the first thing I was doing. I was doing other things, but I'm like, need to give her the colors, and we ended up testing them on camera and stuff. But it's like, um, I I kind of didn't, I'd met enough people in London that, like my decorator, this woman, Anna Lynch Robinson, I think she was like a lady or a dame, or she had family. She was like the most uh, posh decorator I'd ever worked with.
Right.
She had this like convertible Mercedes with sequins or rhinestones either on the steering wheel or on the gear shift. And she was like always dressed perfectly, and she's a decorator, and
Mm,
I'm like, so I kind of went with like, you know what? There's family money, there's generational wealth in this country
yeah.
that you don't know where these people, I don't have to signify their social strata by making them live in like a modest home.
Yeah.
So call that like a huge rationalization, but I kind of went with it. And one of my favorite moments was when um sorry, I got my dog is here. Hey, get
That's
up.
all good.
Um was when the dinner guests come in. I think we've already played the scene in the bedroom. The dinner guests come in for the first time, and Kate Blanchett totally ad-libbed when someone, I think Naomi Harris, says, "Oh, what a beautiful home you have," and Kate Blanchett says something like, "Oh, it's amazing what you can do if you don't have any children," or
Right.
"Amazing what you can afford if you don't have any children," and that was just like a toss-off line. But I was like, we addressed it. It's like now it's in the movie,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I thanked her afterwards. I was like, you literally just justified the entire production design in one line, and she laughed.
I love it.
But it was
Yeah.
sort of that, it was kind of like it wasn't one of those movies to use restraint and it's got to feel real. And we went and visited those offices, like I said, and I took away details from it because it literally looked like any other office. It was very you wouldn't want to film it. It's just like
Yeah.
it looked like just a normal place you go to work, but there was some stuff that was kind of like missing. There were certainly parts we couldn't go into, like the real cool parts. Um, but it was like, let's make it real enough, but then elevate it. And
Yeah.
we had a couple of advisors, GCHQ advisors, and uh, they came to the set when I did the offices, and we were like, "Oh, we should have you like redo our offices. These are great." It's like
Yeah.
it really ups our game quite a bit. So
I
that
love
was
that.
fun. It was cool. It was like it's um it still was character driven. There was a lot of thought put into it, but
Mm,
when you go in saying like it's just got to be the right amount of beautiful, and Kate at the very beginning, I remember she was talking to Ellen, the costume designer, and she said it was very important that the spaces feel sensual. And I heard that right at the beginning, and I'm like, that's sexy is one thing, but sensual runs a little deeper,
mm,
as kind of a deeper meaning. And I really took that to heart when I was envisioning the set, that I did want it to be sensual.
right.
So uh, yeah,
It definitely
it
it
was that.
works. It works.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good, good.
I
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I really did. One bit that stood out to me, I remember turning to I was watching with my sister and I went, "Oh, this is gonna be great." It was the one at the start following Fassbender down through the club and then
Sure.
back out. And I was just
Yeah.
like, when Steven says like, "Okay, we're gonna do uncut all through this club," like you sort of have to get the outside ready, the inside, like how do you approach a
Well,
scene
it's funny.
like
All right,
that?
so insider baseball, we that was not the scene as it was originally scripted. It was
Right.
scripted. They were sitting on a park bench. Um, by the river. And if you look in a lot of the material, there's a shot of Michael kind of on a bridge with Big Ben behind him. That's like our
Yes.
that was the opening scene of the film. Like kind
Right.
of, and I think the idea behind that was sort of like hide in plain sight. Like, there's people walking by and these guys are having this clandestine meeting. And we shot that whole thing. And I think towards the end, Steven said it wasn't working and he wanted to find, I think he wanted to support the idea that Meacham was a loose cannon, that there's an allusion to like he had cheated on his wife, and he said that this job makes it so easy for us to cheat, and uh, and I think Steven just wanted to kind of like support that a little bit more, so he came up with the idea. He said, I want him in a club with a couple of women, uh, and then Michael takes him. And they talk about business. So it was very loosely. It was scripted. It was almost all the same dialogue from the original scene, but
Yeah.
Steven just wanted to transpose it in a different place. And so I went and scouted and found this club. And uh, on the spot, Steven came up with because I told him I said, oh, you should look around because there was like this big courtyard in front. It looked like this unassuming kind of house almost. And there were art galleries and all stuff around. I think it was like we were thinking of taking him in off the street through the courtyard into the club. And then I showed Steven there was an alley in the back, which I thought maybe at the end when they come out, they'd be talking in this alley. And you know, he's like can be a man of few words when his mind is kind of going. And so we got there, and he kind of looks around, and he and I both like that it was two stories. Like you walk into the club, and then you go into the basement part of it. And then he literally like on that scout sight unseen, he's like, I'm gonna do this in one shot. And he takes us and he starts in the alley, and he's like gonna be on the back of his head. I'm not gonna reveal his head until he has his first line with Meacham in the back. So I'm gonna be on his head. But that's like when Steven and I kind of mind meld in a way that I'm not aware we're mind melding,
Right.
but he is. Like
Yeah.
I always say I like take it to the 80-yard line or the 90, if I'm lucky, the 90-yard line, and that like 10 yards is the whole game that he finishes it with,
Right.
But it's like,
Yeah.
so we went to this play, and I was like, I wish I had presented it that way,
Mm.
but that's what so it was great. He's like gonna take him through the front door, and then he loved that there was like the stairs that came right back out into where the same place. He's like, and then I'm just gonna play the scene there, and it was like um it just was very fulfilling that it was like this kind of we're like playing jazz together.
Yeah.
It's like we're just playing jazz, and it's like I'm offering up ideas, and then he'll take them or dismiss them, and then overlay his own ideas, and that was just one of those scenes there. I think visually it was much more exciting than the way it was written, and it sets the tone of the film a lot better than two guys talking on a park bench by the Thames. That was,
Yeah.
we shot right by the London Eye, the big Ferris wheel. We were right in the middle. That was like a big kind of scene to shoot and then not use.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
definitely.
but
And I can
he,
picture the exact image you're talking about, a fast bender on that
yeah, he's
bridge
kind of
as
like
well.
he's leaning back a little
Yeah.
bit, and it's the not the poster, but it's the image that always pops up like on IMDb and everything. So it's
Yeah.
funny because that and like on a lot of the reviews, that's the picture they use.
Yeah.
Um, no one's ever no one's ever questioned like where is that scene in the movie? It's
That's
like
so true.
on the cutting room floor.
Yeah, yeah.
That's that's Steven. It's like he comes up. I feel like I'm blowing smoke up his ass, but he's so friggin' smart story wise and visually. It's like
Mm.
he's like one of those guys when he says it, you go, shit, yeah, that's exact. Like I wasn't able to articulate it. There was something maybe like gnawing a little bit, but
Mm.
we shot it. It's in the movie, and he's like, no, we're gonna redo this. We're gonna do this much better, and we're gonna do it in a different place. And so that was fun. It was really fun.
Yeah, definitely. I
Uh,
have one little, this is a little bit spoilery, but I'll sort of tell people, but
sure.
there's one little production design element I had to ask you about, and that was the red soccer ball
Ah, okay.
that John Page
I
has.
take I take complete credit for that. So in the
Okay.
script, it was scripted as a USB drive that he pockets and takes out the security. You know, when we visited the real place, we were like, we asked them questions about like if someone wanted to take out some malware, um, you know, how easy or how difficult would it be? And the answer we got back that I think I can share is they said, look, there has to be a certain amount of trust with our employees. So there's nothing, there's no cell phones allowed when you come in. We decided to not have that because there were too many scenes already written where people are on their phones in the offices. But basically, you leave your cell phones. Everything is hardwired. That's why, like, some of the computers that I was watching it, I was like, you see computer cords and stuff, but that was intentional. It sort of looks a little messy, but it's everything. There's no kind of internet that it's a closed loop system, is what I'm trying to
Right.
say. So, you know, obviously, of course, makes sense. They're dealing with sensitive data. But they said, look, if someone really wants to copy something, and if we have like a traitor in our midst, there's kind of like you have to trust your employees to some extent. So they can do it. So
Right.
I always just wanted to make it more visual. Like I was like, there's so many little gadgets in the film. How are you gonna know like one USB and then the other one when the guy dies in the car and the thing? So I said, you know, I wanted to use a man united. I was looking at these little uh, charms or trinket, whatever, you know, things at the end of keychains that, you know, the one was, I had one that was like not the Royal Air Force, like the Royal Marines, because he has a military background. And then I found a bunch of these soccer ones, and I thought it would just be great if, and I think it's like the only red thing in the movie. It's like,
Yeah.
make it so you actually see it, but you don't want to like pay too much attention to it. And he plays it perfectly. He's like, kind of just like a worry bead. He's like kind of got it in his hand when he's in Zoe's office.
Mm.
Um, and then I literally had the idea, and then that should like melt off, and then you reveal that that's the heart, that's the USB drive. So I was super nervous about it because it was like something I'd like concocted, and Steven he thought it was a great idea. Then the prop guy is like, "Oh, can it be like a CG melt?" Or and Steven's like, "No, I really want to melt it." And we're like, "Well, can we like speed up the camera?" Because they were afraid like the timing of it kind of like dissolving because it does it in like 10 seconds or something.
Yeah.
Uh,
Right.
and then we were like, "No," because all the other flames in the background would not be reacting the same way. So no, we got to do it like on camera for real. Not the most like difficult thing ever done, but like it was a little bit of it was a gag.
Mm.
And so they made out of like this like a waxy silicone thing, and we did tests, and there actually was a guy right off camera with a little like a butane torch heating
Right.
up the bottom of the metal, so it just kind of like sizzled, and it was
Yeah.
one of those things like it's like a slow burn, but then when it hits some critical temperature, it just like bleh, did that.
Yeah.
It was kind of great. So um, I'm glad I kind of could bring that to the table. I always there's something that's bothering me in the script. I challenge myself to offer a better idea.
Mm.
Not like not diverging. I'm talking about on a detail level.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, that was really a production. That was not a scripted thing.
Yeah, cool. Oh, that's amazing. I love the little details like that. It's one of those things, especially in the second time. It was when um Reggie's character was playing with it in
Yeah,
that therapist scene, and I was like,
yeah,
oh, this is really cool. That it's just it stands out that tennis ball. Um,
yeah, cool.
this is more of just like a personal fun question, but I mean, you have like Pierce Brosnan in this film, and obviously like a
Mhm.
spy espionage film, and you got Bond. Like, what was it
Well,
like that
and
first day?
You had Moneypenny too.
Moneypenny, of course, yes. And then you got like Reggie as well, that people are like really advocating for Bond as well. So,
I know. No, we that
was
was not lost on us on set. It was
yeah,
cool having Pierce. I think he was only in it 2 days, maybe 3 days of shooting. I think it was maybe two. A couple of scenes up in those conference rooms, and then one at the
yeah,
sushi restaurant.
with the fish.
It's funny because I guess we since it was shot in London, I'd have to look actually when I go on Friday. I'm going to watch the credits. Um, I don't think there was like an ASPCA, like no animals were harmed during the making of this film. It's not like a little
Right.
tag at the end that we usually put on.
Mm.
but we never had any animal rights people. We actually didn't have any animals on set.
Yeah.
There was so about 2 weeks ago, a woman from ethical treat, not PETA, but maybe it was the SPCA, Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. She emailed me and said, I just want to make sure that that was not a real live fish that you guys used. And I
Wow.
ended up sending her a picture. It was actually a puppeted fish. So what we did was we molded a fish and they put a little, sorry, you can't see my hand. They put a little motor in it to kind of flap. And there was a guy with like a little off camera, little control and, you know, kind of just trying to get that movement to it. But then we put real sushi in it. We kind of created a carved out fish. So
Mm.
Pierce could actually eat real sushi out of it, but it looks like it had just been cut from the fish.
Yeah.
Uh, so I just
Wow.
sent her like, I assure you that was not a real fish. Sent her pictures of the thing being molded, and she was like, "Ah, it's amazing! It fooled everybody."
Oh, that's
Uh,
amazing.
and I was thinking, "Oh my God, these animal rights people!" I hope. And then the other one was the catching the fish in the fishing scene.
Mm.
Um, uh, I think it was like a prop guy on the other end of the line just tugging. I'm not sure you ever see him catch a fish. I think it's just.
No, I don't think so, actually.
No,
I
I
think
don't
he
know. I
starts
don't
reeling
think
it in,
there.
but yeah, no, I don't
No,
think.
I don't think there was ever. But it's funny how your mind, because she said like, "Oh, the fish in the fishing scene." And I haven't gone back and watched it, but I'm like, I don't think we ever had a fish in that. I think it was
No.
literally because the lake. What we liked about that lake, part of it was there was like it was only 4 feet deep, so
Mm.
we had like people around spinning the boat around, and the camera got it was like people were just up with waders, up to their chests. And there, I wasn't there that day because I was out in the middle of the lake. And but I remember it was like, oh, the prop guy's just gonna tug at the other end when they're trying to pull the fish in. So
Mm.
those are the two scenes. But I was like, I'm glad I had an answer for
Yeah,
that. I was like,
yeah.
could have been like a lot of bad press for the movie.
Yeah, it's almost like it's a compliment, but it gets the heart going a little bit when you get
A
that
little, a
email.
little bit. I was like, God,
Yeah.
I hope they believe me.
Yeah. I love the idea of like the fishing within it. Like kind of I love it that he's kind of hooking something in, you know what I mean? Like what he's
Yeah, of
doing with
course,
them.
of
And then
course.
of course like Pierce Brosnan with like the fish at the end, just that symbolism was just
Yes.
so
Yeah.
much fun.
And
Um
I don't know if you noticed, Pierce actually had a very subtle um uh prosthetic on the bridge of his nose. His nose was it was just very subtle and just made him look a little different, a little stronger kind of nose line. And that was uh our makeup woman, Frances Franny. Uh I forget her last name, so I'm so sorry.
yeah, no, it's okay.
I think Heatherton. Uh, because I said to her, I was like, because like I hadn't seen Pearson a little bit, and not in real life, but on film, and I'm like,
Mm.
okay, he's aged a little bit, and I'm like, something looks a little different, and she's like, I made a prosthetic for the bridge of his nose, just a super subtle thing, but it's amazing how that, like, you still know it's him, but it
Mm.
just takes him, creates another character element for him.
Yeah,
So, uh,
yeah. Oh,
that was fun.
amazing. Yeah, wow. Yeah, yeah, definitely. Oh, it's super cool.
Everybody, like all the departments, have their little things that, when you're working with talented people, every department kind of brings their little touch to it. Like the costume designer, Ellen
Mm.
Marajnik, who I've done a couple movies with, who's brilliant. What she did for Kate, and Michael created two very iconic looks for them. Michael with
Yeah.
the turtleneck kind of harkening back to Michael Caine and the 60s kind of spy movie. That was
Yes.
very intentional, and the kind of thick glasses.
Mm.
That was that Steven really was harkening back to a lot of those 60s movies. Was it the Ipcress File? There's something that there's a couple of 60s Michael Caine films that
Right.
spy movies that we were swinging London in the 60s.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love it. I love it.
Yeah.
That's super
Yeah.
cool. I
Yeah, 'cause, people don't dress like that in an office with like tweed jackets and button. But it's
yeah,
like you look
yeah.
awesome. Who cares? You look at his blue sunglasses. You look fantastic.
Looks awesome. Yeah, I love yeah, Pierce in the three-piece suit and I
Yep.
love the scene where he's just walking to the restaurant just in the middle of London, just looking
Yeah.
like Pierce
Yeah.
Brosnan walking through London. You're
Yeah.
like, it's just so right. It's so
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. That's cool.
I just another question with the production design. I love the when you like noticing details in computer rooms in these spy films and stuff.
Hmm?
How much do you put into like when you see that wall of screens?
A
Is it
lot.
like a lot? Yeah, I was gonna
A
say, how do you
lot.
go
I
about
mean,
with that?
all that was live on camera.
Yeah.
And we had a great graphics and motion graphics department that, you know, we designed everything on those screens, like with the position. Now we try to build in a little bit of like on the day, if we want to switch the part that is going for the handoff, if that needs to go to a different part of the screen for whatever, you know, you get the camera in there, you want to be able to move that. So it was modular, but we spent a lot of time designing that, getting the files. Those are all like licensable files that our graphics team ended up finding. The only thing we ever shot was the overhead of the farmhouse with the heat signatures, the bodies, where it's like there's seven, and then after the handoff there ends up being five. I was actually one of the bodies. So what we ended up doing was just walking around a courtyard. We shot the house, and then about eight of us, seven of us, whatever it was, walked around a courtyard. That was shot, and then the CG, he made them into heat signatures. So myself, my art director, we were all heat signatures for that.
Oh, awesome.
That was day zero, you know, before day one. That was in prep. We just shot that because we knew we needed to kind of like have that touched and cut and kind of all, you know, for the conference room scene. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, there was a lot, and there was a lot of there was and then we shot. I think we shot Zurich either the first day or the in pre-production as well, because all that needed to be cut together for when they're in that skiff and he's zooming in on
Awesome.
her. And
Yeah.
so I went to Zurich. I think I was there for 2 days, and it's a really cool town. Not that big in the end, which is great. I had actually kind of pre-scouted it on Google Earth, which I do that a lot, but this time it actually was like, well, this is the way we're going to be seeing it in the movie.
Yeah,
From
it's
Google,
so
you know what I
true.
mean? Like that's like I want to. That's exactly what I'm looking for. Is something that has like an interesting shape. And then when we found that there was that fountain, that kind of odd like artistic fountain with the water into a like big pan thing, it was like, oh, that it just, you know, looking for things like little touchstones. So as you're kind of cutting around, you know where she is and where she is in space in relation to where the camera is. And we went out there and shot it with a series of drones getting further and further away, uh, and then that was all cut together and then literally put into a file that was integrated. You know, so when
Marissa Bella.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, when she and Michael are in the room, like we had to walk her through kind of what you do a lot of the times is you make it so any keystroke will trigger the next screen. Like you don't want them to fully
Ah.
be in charge of because they're acting. They're
Yeah.
trying to concentrate on the scene. This is sort of like in the end, it just needs to happen
Mm.
mechanically repeatable. You don't want them getting frustrated with, oh, they didn't put the cursor on the right thing and click the right thing. It's like, so we had that all laid out. So a couple of times as we were making it, we brought her into the process and brought Marissa in and you know, this is like because she was a little nervous, like how much do I and she didn't seem like a computer person. It's like how much do I need to know about this? And like you don't need to know anything about it. It's like you
Yeah.
know that's then and then we came up with that little like the AI when she goes to get the AI thing. Steven, I
Oh
remember
yeah.
because we had it like on the desk, and Steven's like, "No, we had set up another desk in the back, and he's like, "No, I wanted to kind of like roll on the chair, roll
Yeah,
and get
chair.
you know the little things, and like you sort of see how the scene is built." Um, but we created all that AI stuff, and there were like multiple. We kind of like for maybe 3 or 4 weeks, we'd bring Steven in once a week and go, "This is where we're at." He'd give some notes. Um, and then, but yeah, like something I don't mean stupid, but like a minor thing like that is like an inordinate amount of time
Yeah.
for us kind of working on to get it right. So it on the day, it sort of like all plays, you know,
Mm.
the way you want it to. So
Yeah. Yeah. That's I mean that works on screen because it does feel so detailed and lived in.
yeah, and he didn't want to do any of it in post. It's
Yeah.
all so you got to respect that. It makes it
Mm.
harder on us, but you know, I'm old enough. I remember when we would have playback, and I think a lot of guys are getting back to that. A lot of directors are getting back that like you can burn in anything on a computer monitor, but it's like let's have it there for the actors. It's like a little bit
Yeah.
more work up front. but then you're done, and you don't have to think
Mm,
about it again. You know?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of had a general industry question about this film. Like even Stevens said that he was lucky to get a film like this made in the climate that it's like that
Yes.
mid-budget. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That's that. What do you kind of think about that? With do you feel like these films aren't getting made anymore, or you know what I mean? I mean, obviously this
Um,
did, but
I don't know. That's
yeah,
a wormhole to dive into.
fair enough. Mm,
Yeah, it's because just because I've been attached to several projects this year of the same general ilk
mm,
that have not been able to get financed and have fallen apart. So I think because it's Steven and he had Kate and Michael kind of all lined up and David kept the screenwriter, I think,
yeah,
it was focused. I'm actually this next project, I'm knock on wood, I'm hoping it's a focus project as well, which is a division of Universal. Um, I'm like, yeah, for studios to be making theatrical releases, which is another thing, and movies of a certain budget. This wasn't a very expensive movie, but it cost a little bit, and you see why, and
yeah,
thank God people cared enough to say this is the money we're going to spend on it. We want to get this product, and there are still people that care about that. But Stephen, I went to the premiere in New York, one of the premieres, and he was like, if this film doesn't play in the theaters, it's like amazingly reviewed. He's like, I don't know the state, like I don't know what to say about the state. I think it's actually doing well. It's not
yeah,
like, lighting the world on fire, but I think it's almost kind of up to made enough money to cover its budget.
mm,
Um, but it's like got 97% on Rotten Tomatoes.
yeah,
You know, 90's like that's the highest he or I or Kate Blanchett did something on Instagram, like my highest rated film ever and Black
mm,
Bag. And it's like, yeah, so it's like, then it's something is wrong with the system if that isn't kind of, burning up the box office. There's
mm,
something, so, um, I think in the end, making films for sort of mature, I'm not going to say older adults, but mature adults, like not chasing like the teen dollar.
yeah,
Older people still go to the movies, you
yeah,
know, maybe more than kids sometimes.
yeah.
Uh, yeah, there's this other project that I technically was hired on, and now it's going through the studio, and I'm assuming that any day I'm going to get like, okay, we're doing this. It's it's totally off the hook. It's one of the craziest scripts I've ever read. I'd be dying to share that with you at some point, but
I'd love to know,
it's kind
man.
of another one of those like, okay, wow, I feel lucky that a studio is making this.
Yeah, yeah,
I look, I'll work on anything that's good material, but it's just more fun to work on a film than a streaming kind
yeah,
of thing. I love watching streaming series,
yeah,
and
yeah.
I love it. It's just the rush to kind of consume it and binge it, and thank God places like HBO they kind of drop like every week, so you kind of have to,
Yeah.
you can't just like, I mean, at the end you can, of course you can binge it, but they create an environment where sort of like the old days where everybody like Sunday night here, in the States, Sunday night, like White Lotus, like people
Mm,
start talking about like, oh, you're gonna watch White Lotus tonight? It's like, that's amazing. That's like the old days when there was like three channels and like something was on that everybody watched. And it's like it creates like a cultural kind of momentum that just when a streaming service dumps like 10 episodes, people, oh, did you watch blah blah blah? Yeah, I watched it in 2 days, and you just as quickly kind of I guess can forget about it because it's just
yeah.
like you're not sitting with it and thinking
Mm,
about it during the week, and it's
yeah, yeah.
so anyway, I'm so I feel very lucky every time I work on a
Mm,
film, but I'll do anything for the
yeah, yeah.
record.
No, amazing. I
Never
love
say
that.
never.
I'll get you out here on this one. This was actually a question that came from a friend at uni who I told I was getting you back on the pod, and he wanted to know what you believe are some of the best films for production design that you've ever
Oh
seen.
wow.
And
Um,
he's interested in production design himself, and he was like, "What does Philip recommend as the films for
well, it's funny
production?"
because I did a podcast last week with a couple of guys in the States, and at the end they said, "Oh, we're gonna ask the big Kahuna question." And I had not seen this podcast, so I didn't know. Like at the end, they asked some question, like, "What's your favorite movie of all time?" And the only movie that came to mind was Old School with like
All right.
Luke Wilson,
Yeah.
and and we just had this whole esoteric conversation about film and art, and
I
I'm like,
love
Old
it.
School. They looked so disappointed. They looked
Oh,
so.
really? No,
I
that's
was like,
great. I love
I
that.
was like, I'm gonna go with that.
Yeah.
So, I love films that I can kind of uh, go back to time and again. I think of like, obviously Coppola's early movies.
Mm.
I love Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid is in no particular order. I'm a child of the '70s. The French Connection,
Yeah.
and because they create, whether they created it or they captured it, it's a certain time and place, especially like New
Mm.
York in the '70s.
Yeah.
Taxi Driver, New York in the like that gritty, shitty New York in the '70s.
Mm.
Like you almost couldn't, if you had to recreate that now, you'd build it on a backlot. It just doesn't exist. But
Yeah.
uh, Goodfellas,
Mm.
McCabe and Mrs. Miller, I think is actually a beautifully designed film with Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway. Bonnie and Clyde. I mean, I'm literally this is all within the same
No,
5 year period.
that's great. It's an inspirational. That's so true.
Something I've shared with my son, like anything by David Lean, like A Bridge Over the River Kwai, I think is an amazing
Yeah.
film. I think they built that bridge out in the middle of nowhere, and they had to show it, thinking like a production designer, it's like it's in stages, so you have to
Mm.
show it like just like, and I always wonder, did they go to like down the river and do like the first part and then up the river a little bit more and the second part was already done, or
Very
did they
true.
actually just take the time and like, okay, we'll come back in 2 months and there's going to be more bridge there.
Yeah.
The Great Escape,
Yeah.
Goodfellas, um, Casino.
Mm.
It's. I guess I'm in a pretty small. And I love the Wes Anderson films.
I was
Um,
thinking that.
I
Grand
I gotta
Budapest.
say, yeah, the one in the hotel, Royal Budapest Hotel, I
Yeah.
think is
Yeah.
great. Because
Mm.
but probably my favorite is of his is Royal Tenenbaums. It's sort of
Oh, yeah.
before he got fully stylized.
Yeah.
Because personally, I find them beautiful to watch, but I always have a bit of a distance
Mm.
watching those films because they're such a complete world that I'm like observing this world. I'm not like inhabiting the
Yeah.
world. And some of the
Yeah.
other '70s films, I feel like I'm in it. Your heart's racing when there's
Mm.
Gene Hackman and that chase scene under the bridge. And
Mm.
but I mean, the Wes Anderson, he's created a vocabulary wholly unto himself,
Mm.
uh, and they're beautiful films. They're beautifully constructed. I like watching. Like I think I watched a little featurette on the Dolly Grip. Um, uh, I don't know if it was Royal Budapest. He used the same Dolly Grip, and some of the moves they come up with are actually super difficult. But
Yeah.
because they're all staged very kind of like presentationally, it may look like it's easy, but you watch kind of what they have to do. So I love watching that stuff, all the sort of practical
Yeah.
magic.
I think I
I
saw a
showed
movie
a
talking
friend.
about where it's like they're in
Yeah,
that car and it like slides across the thing and it's like the
yeah,
background changes and the
yeah,
lighting and yeah,
yeah.
yeah. It's stunning,
Um,
isn't it? Oh, it's
I
amazing.
love There Will Be Blood, probably one of my top
Yes.
five production designed films. It's amazing, and I
Mm.
love that. Not because of this, but I love that. Robert Elswith won an Oscar that year for cinematography, and he actually thanked Jack Fisk, the production designer, who I think had been nominated but didn't win, and he
Mm.
thanked him because it's such a symbiotic relationship. If you don't put great stuff in front of the camera, it's kind of hard to make a beautiful frame. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah.
but that actually kind of like stands out near the top of my list. It's a beautifully made film. Uh,
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh
anyway,
well, I'll
it's
get you
my
out of
long
here
list.
now. Thank you so much for
All
coming
right,
back
thanks,
on the
William.
show. I really
Okay,
appreciate it. It's so good to chat
sure.
to you again, and
Yeah,
best
no,
of
it's
luck with your
fun.
next project.
Yeah, we'll do it again. Okay.
Definitely. Absolutely.
Now you know
Thank
I
you
mean
so
it
much.
because I said that last time and we did do it
You
again.
did. I no, I seriously appreciate it. And like I
Oh,
enjoyed it the first time and it was just a hoot the second time. Thank you
all
so
right,
much.
great. Awesome, man. All
Congratulations on the
right, be
film.
well. Thank
See
you.
you later. Thank you, Philip.
Bye.
I just want to say a huge thank you to Philip for coming on the show. What a guy. What a career, and what a movie. I'm just so honored to keep having these guests and especially guests that want to come on the show and share their work and the behind the scenes. It's such an honor. I hope you're enjoying the show. I really hope audiences are coming on, and it means a lot that you come back and listen each week. I would ask if you could like, subscribe, and all that stuff. I hate doing that, but it would mean a lot as we boost the algorithm, get us out there, get some more filmmakers on the show, and I really hope we can get it rising and make the show something really special. And I really feel like we're getting there, and with phenomenal guests like Philip, it's such an honor to have a show like this. Thank you so much for listening, and of course, thank you again to Philip. What a movie, Black Bag. Go see it if you haven't had a chance, and for those of you that have, will know that Philip's insights just elevated the movie so much. Spy thriller, my kind of genre, go check it out. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you on the next one. Thank you.